Tennessee Titans fans Daniel Jeremiah of NFL Network talking about year one expectations for Cam Ward here today on the Rich Eisen Show. That's one thing I always say about the Rich Eisen Show. They are never going to pass up an opportunity to talk about the Titans and Cam Ward. He has really gone out of his way to talk about the Titans and Cam Ward this offseason. Appreciate it. Let's hear what Daniel Jeremiah's got to say.
Let's linger on Cam Ward a little bit because as soon as he got drafted, as you know, we were all looking at each other because he's walking down the hall.
Every Rich Eisen segment about Cam Ward starts the same. Nobody's talking about this guy. Nobody's talking about him. He's a number one pick, and everybody's just talking about Shedeur and Travis Hunter.
Hallway out of the green room to the stage, and we all got the message in our ears, Jacksonville's now on the clock. So, you know, our conversation about Cam Ward was maybe shorter than what it ordinarily would have been if there wasn't a massive trade for a massively talented, much talked about player in the draft being acquired at the time. You look at what Tennessee.
I just still say that it would not have happened if it were another team picking number one. I don't think it would have happened. If this were last year and Chicago were picking Caleb Williams and everybody knew they were picking Caleb Williams for months, and, you know, somebody traded with Washington right as they officially drafted Caleb Williams, I do not think they would have cut away so quickly from Chicago to talk about it. I think they would have, you know, they would have at least gone through the process of talking about Caleb and showing the interview with Caleb and spending a little bit of time before they cut in with that breaking news. But because it was the Titans, they were so quick to cut away because they don't care about Titans. It's not just about, oh, there was a blockbuster trade that happened and we had to cut away. No, you felt okay to cut away because it was the Titans. It's the same reason that ESPN felt okay to not even talk about Cam Ward as the Titans were on the clock. They were showing highlights of Shedeur.
He has put together, right, and already has there, and adding Tyler Lockett and adding more pieces in the draft and doing what they've done. What's the expectation level? Level set it for me for Cam Ward and Tennessee. DJ?
Well, first of all, Rich, we talked about him for 10 minutes before the pick because there was no mystery in who was going to be the pick. So
Correct.
You did. ESPN did not. ESPN did not talk about him. They talked about him for like 30 seconds because they were showing Shedeur highlights. Well, go back and watch. I'm not making it up.
I mean, we went through and showed his highlights. I remember us, Charles and I having the discussion about Steve McNair and some of the skills that he had that were reminiscent of the great former quarterback of the Titans. So I feel like we had a good chat on him. Now we had to pivot once that trade went in, but I like the fact that they've tried to make this a little more friendly with some of the veteran offensive linemen that they added. I think they might have overpaid a little bit on Dan Moore, but it was an upgrade. They got better there.
I'm worried about that too. I'm skeptical on Dan Moore as well. I'm hopeful, but I'm also skeptical.
And then Zeitler comes in there, so that's a big, strong, sturdy guy that you can plug in. And then now you go into the draft and give him some other pieces to help him out. I think he's ready to go, Rich. I think you can get him on the field week one. I think he makes them competitive. Wow. I still think the roster is a little bit leaky and there's a lot more homework to do there.
Sure.
But one of the things I learned about him in talking to the folks at Miami was he is one of those guys who's never had a bad day. When they could lose 3 games in a row next year in Tennessee, they said he'll be smiling in the building. He'll be able to lift everybody up. One of the other nuggets was like every time their team turned the ball over, I think it was 13 times. Right after that, they had 7 touchdowns on the next drive and 3 field goals. So just a little microcosm example of somebody who's equipped to handle adversity, and you don't go from Incarnate Word to the first overall pick without being able to overcome some obstacles. So I'm excited for him. I wouldn't expect that this is a team that's going to be over 500 or be a playoff team this next year because of some of the roster limitations. But I think when you watch those matchups inside that division, talent-wise, he's going to be able to go throw for throw with C.J. Stroud and Trevor Lawrence, all those guys.
Before I go grab bag on you, the number I'll have.
before they continue on, I mean, I will say, I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's not the funnest thing in the world, but that's a successful season right there. If you were to go 6-11, 7-10, and Cam Ward is able to go throw for throw with CJ Stroud in those games against Houston, for example, you walk out of this season feeling pretty dang good about the Titans and Cam Ward.
I'll have you call your shot here, and I'll give you the same out I gave Breer yesterday when I asked him. If you're right, we'll mention it. If you're wrong, this conversation never happened.
Flush it. Yep.
That's literally how the sports media does. If we're right, we'll talk about it forever. If we're not, we'll just conveniently pretend we never said anything.
Oh, it's my favorite type of conversation here.
We'll bury the tape. So the number of rookie quarterbacks from this class who will start in the upcoming season. Give me that number. Looking at the screen here of all the drafted.
I'll do that first. I'll do that. Cam, obviously. Jackson Dart, unless Russ gets hurt, which could happen. I mean, Russ is older. Or unless the Giants are terrible and they just want to go with Dart at the end. I'm going to go on a limb and say Jackson Dart will start at least one game for one reason or another. Either because Russ gets hurt or because the Giants are just awful and they want to bring some life in. Tyler Shaw, I think he's going to have to. The Saints have no one. Jalen Milroe, no. Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders. I mean, one of them you would think, at least one of them is going to have to start. And then the rest of these guys, Kyle McCord, no. Will Howard, no. Riley Leonard, no. Graham Mertz, no. So really, at most, I mean, the other one you can make an argument for would be Quinn Ewers because if he's good enough to be Tua's backup in Miami, we know Tua has a tendency to get hurt. So I would say at most 1, 2, 3, I'd say 5
quarterbacks from Cam
at
down
most.
to Ewers. What do you think?
Safe bet.
Yep, I'm going to say we get Cam is going to start. So there's one. I'm going to say Tyler Shuck's going to start some games. That'll be 2. Which, by the way, almost kind of like even slips my mind about the Tyler Shuck one and the opportunity that he walked into. So he'll start some games. So that gives you 2. I'll say Milroe, no. Dylan Gabriel, no. I'll say Shedeur is a maybe as you go all the way down through there. So I'm going to put it at 2.5.
2.5.
Wow.
And that's the line.
So I'm being generous. I'm saying Cam, Tyler Shaw, Dart somehow, whether Russ gets hurt or just the Giants are bad and they want to see how he looks. That's 3. I'm going to say one of the Browns guys gets a start, either Gabriel or Shedeur. And then I'm on a huge maybe. I would say if there's a 5th, it would be Quinn Ewers in Miami if he's able to become the backup. But I know that's a stretch, so I'll say 4.
You take the under?
I'll take the over because weird things happen. You know, one of these teams is going to get wiped out with injuries, and you're going to see one of these random guys start. It happens every year.
Catch.
True. I'm just banking on that being Quinn Ewers, I guess, in my scenario. I don't know. I'm not offended by anything he had to say. I mean, I think that it's kind of the general consensus among the media. People are high on Cam Ward, not as high on the Titans as a whole. And you can't blame them for that because the Titans, I do like what they've done this offseason. It's been very conservative, but they're just trying to put Cam Ward in as good of a spot as they can this year. And I understand it's not flashy, and I understand looking at their roster as a whole and thinking, not sure about this. But there's reason to be excited, and that's clear and evident. People are a lot more excited about him than they were about Will. So tighten up, everybody.